Last day of the LHSAA football season, the Division I and then Class 4A and 5A state championships. He's still Brent Broussard, I'm still Jarrett Roser, and these games actually, a couple of them were not as close as those smaller school games that we talked about being the closest that we've seen in recent years. Still, I thought some pretty exciting games. The first one of the day, definitely the closest, but some intrigue the rest of the way as well. And I thought the 4A game for a while was closer than a lot of people even necessarily expected it to be too.
Right, yeah. You started the day with Catholic and Curtis. Catholic here lately, of course, won the title in 2015. And then Curtis, who is always a state power, started the day off, and Catholic with the win, 20-14 over Curtis. Second game of the day was that 4A game, Karr and Lakeshore. In Karr, they've only been playing football since '92, and it seems like they just win it every year, but they were able to win their fourth state title this year with the 48-26 win over Lakeshore, who's a newcomer in the Dome, but definitely deserved to be there with that 14-1 record, with Karr being their only loss on the season. And then the nightcap, the 5A game, Zachary and Hahnville. Zachary was able to get the win, 34-14 over Hahnville, and kind of pulled away from it there in the first half. Yeah. Despite Pooka scoring early, scored 27 unanswered there in that first half, and just kind of put that game on ice. So,
yeah. The Broncos and the Bears, the two Baton Rouge teams that won that day to make it 4 for 4 of the really close Baton Rouge teams. Obviously, St. Helena, Ascension Catholic, and Kentwood a little bit farther out, less successful on those first 2 days. But Catholic and Zachary, two teams that a lot of us thought might be a year away from getting back to this point. They both won in 2015, and they both get back and get the job done. Catholic, Cameron Dartez, the quarterback, as healthy as he'd been in a while, was able to make some critical plays at critical times for the offense, and then some really big defensive plays by Pat Mensa and company kind of helped seal that day and beat a Curtis team that a lot of people didn't give them as much of a chance against as they certainly would have liked.
Yeah, of course. You mentioned Dartez, and I mean, just a solid performance. Threw for about 200 yards and a touchdown. I think he actually led Catholic in rushing with about 30 yards. So just a really solid day, just controlled the game and did everything his coaches asked him to do. And on the other side of the ball, or the other side of the field, Colin Guggenheim from Curtis broke his finger in his throwing hand in the second quarter, and just didn't miss a snap. I mean, just a warrior there, and just did his best to try to lead that Curtis team, and really, just an overall good game. It was 7-0 at halftime. Catholic had the lead. Curtis took the first drive of the second half, came back and scored, made it 7-7. Pat had the big punt return, 57-yard punt return, got it down to the 2. Catholic was able to score, go up 14-7. Curtis turns around and scores to tie the game up, and then Catholic with the 2 late field goals, and also 2 late interceptions, which were both huge plays. They kicked the 20-yard field goal. Preston Stafford missed the early field goal, and so often, those kickers are come back and have those short memories and come back and do big things. So Stafford did that, kicked the 20-yard field goal. Cale Howard had the interception to set up the 43-yard field goal by Stafford, all late in the fourth quarter. Yeah. And then Pat again, Mensa with the big interception with about 35 seconds to play that really iced the game.
Yeah, and no knock on Cam as he gets the outstanding player, and there's always a bias, it seems like, not intentionally, but the media, I guess, just looking at stats, our group that votes tends to gear more towards quarterbacks and running backs just because they see those numbers in front of them. But I thought the impact that Mensa had on this game with the early strip on what looked to be a long touchdown for Curtis, he comes flying out of nowhere and saves a touchdown and gives Catholic possession. He had the big punt return. He came up big in a variety of ways throughout the game, and then had the game-clinching interception. I thought the mark he left on that game in a couple of phases was incredible.
Really good run support from his corner spot. And Pat's a great kid. Got to know him a little bit this summer as he was friends with a lot of our kids and would come and throw at them and things like that, and we just kind of watch him through the window out on our practice field throwing. And just a good kid, and always respectful and humble, thankful that we let him come out and throw with our kids and things like that. And it was good to get to see him really shine on that big stage, Saturday night actually. And, looking forward to getting to see him get a shot at the next level, because, we kind of talked about it earlier with Smoke and some of those guys up at West Feliciana. Pat, another guy that may be a little undersized, and maybe those measurables aren't all exactly where, these college coaches are looking, but the kid can play, and, he needs a shot. And we talked about the swagger, and he's definitely got it. Got to see him at a couple of camps, and you better watch it, because Pat's going to skip you as many times as he can. He's going to get as many reps as he can. So just a good ball player that loves the game, and it's fun to watch him play. Yeah,
you mentioned the swagger. One of the first things he said after that game is he ran up to me and said, I told y'all, I tried to tell y'all. And he finally got that Arkansas Monticello offer in the past week. Nicholls, Southeastern, and Southern, a couple that are all very aware of who he is. I don't know if they're going to have space for him scholarship-wise, but somebody, whether it be the Boll Weevils up at Arkansas Monticello or one of these other schools, either currently in the equation or not, somebody's got to give this guy a chance, because he just gets out there and he makes plays.
Agreed. You're absolutely right. So
that Karr game, I mentioned 48-26, Lakeshore, first time being out there. They've only been playing football, I think, 8 or 9 years. Karr, at this point, pretty much has like a timeshare in the Superdome that first weekend or two in December. But this was the first time that they had won back-to-back state championships, so they were very proud of that. I thought that game was a lot closer, especially for that first half, than a lot of people necessarily expected to be the case, though, because of that reputation Karr has. But Lakeshore hung with them for a while. But that Karr defense just kept harassing Chris Penton and company, and kept setting Ronnie Jackson, Ahmad Antoine and company up with a good position.
Yeah, man. I mean, you look at the final stats, and Karr rushed for over 400 yards and 6 touchdowns. I think part of what kept it close in the first half was the turnovers.
Yep.
4 turnovers total. But, I mean, Karr is just difficult. They had 3 kids rush for over 100 yards. Perry rushed for 151, 319 total all-purpose yards. Or total yards of offense, actually. Antoine, 17 carries, 143 yards, and then Ronnie Jackson, like you said, 22 carries, 114 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. That's tough when you've got 3 kids, much like West Feliciana we talked about earlier. When you got 3 kids that are that dominant, it's tough to beat them, But Lakeshore did a great job, very respectable team. They came out and they a lot of people didn't give them a shot. And I think they proved some people wrong, They've got a couple of really good players. Jacob Bernard had the big kick return for a touchdown, caught another touchdown later. And Penton, like you mentioned, the kid was running for his life all game. Sacked 11 times, but just had a really good pocket presence, would step up in the pocket and find receivers down the field. A couple big throws. And so gained a lot of respect there Saturday evening in the Superdome from a lot of different people.
Skylar said, having to practice against the Cougars defensive front, that he was happy he never had to play against them, and he certainly felt for Chris Penton and quarterbacks that Karr's played along the way, because that group, a great job again, harassing Penton all night. And Jacob Bernard, a guy that no offers going into this weekend. He's a junior, so he'll still have another year to pick some up. And I think he put his name on a lot of folks' maps Saturday. He made some big plays in a variety of ways, and he can just flat out fly.
Oh, no doubt. I spoke with Coach Ryan Fournier, who's down at HL Bourgeois now, and they played Lakeshore this year, and he guaranteed me that he would be the fastest kid on the field during that game. And I think he's got an argument there, because he can get it, he can run. So I expect those offers to come shortly. After this December 20th signing day, when teams go ahead and start looking at these 2019 kids, he'll start getting some offers.
Zachary, just like Catholic, gets its second state championship in 3 years. Lindsey Scott and company a couple of years ago got Zachary to the Dome for the first time, won the first state championship in school history. and they come back now with sophomore quarterback Keelan Brown this year and get the job done. You mentioned Pooka for Hahnville, just
what a special kid, huh?
One of the craziest postseasons, I think. I mean, he went into that game with about 1,200 yards in 4 games coming in, and then has another 210. Puts him on the board early, but then things flipped in a major way the Broncos' direction in that second quarter, and it just never flipped back.
Yeah, and Pooka, I mean, we tried to stop him twice. His sophomore and junior year, we unfortunately had to play Hahnville, thanks Coach Beard. But I mean, the kid is a ball player, and he's electric with the ball in his hands. And it looked like he tweaked his ankle early in the game on that first drive. And Zachary did a good job of containing him. I mean, he had the quietest 210 yards, maybe.
When I saw the final stats, I busted out laughing in the press conference room. After everyone had gone, I was just finishing on my story kind of late that night, and the other media members still there and looked at me because it came out of nowhere. It was all quiet, everyone working. And I just said he still had 210 yards because it seemed like such a slow night by comparison because he didn't have that long 85-yard breakaway.
Right. Yeah, he definitely had to grind everything out. He had 36 carries for 210 yards. A lot of those carries came from the quarterback spot, Wildcat, because when Jackson went down there early in the first half, they kind of had to do it out of necessity. And, Zachary, I think, did a good job of containing both Pooka and Jackson. Jackson ended up with 92 yards passing and only about 20 yards rushing. So he had that injury there early, and that made a big difference. Zachary came in and had a great game plan and did a great job of stifling that rushing game as much as you can, still giving up 210 to Pooka.
Yeah, Coach Brew, the other Coach Brew, Coach Brewerton, talked about that defense that they have being predicated.
He's the real Coach Brew, actually.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. When you've got as many rings as he does compared to me,
He talked about that defense they have being predicated on speed and their guys needing to take correct angles, especially against a guy like Pooka that not a lot of people are going to outrun on a football field, and then making sure that once you run to that ball, they know you're there. And I think they did a really good job of that with those guys early, being not only fast but really physical and making sure that Pooka knew nothing was going to come easily. On the other side, Darweshi Sanders, a guy that Zachary didn't have a great rushing attack early in the year, but the offensive line kind of gelled through the rest of the season. Darweshi ends up with 2 touchdowns over 100 yards, and then Keelan also over 100 yards, had the huge 80-yard touchdown that puts them ahead for good, and then Darweshi another touchdown, and then they get the ball back on the Maverick McClure fumble recovery, and Keelan goes right back to Trey Shropshire over the top, and you could see they were kind of feeling themselves a little bit at that point. Yeah,
definitely. They, I think at that point, and we were standing right there as they were coming off at halftime, and I think they were pretty confident, and they did a good job. It was a pretty impressive performance. So.
R.J. Alexander in the second quarter looks at me on the sideline and says, "Jarrett, let him know, man." I was like, all right.
Pretty sure you probably tweeted something about that pretty quickly and let everybody know.
Yeah, and Lindsay.
Am I correct about that?
Yeah, and Lindsay said, thanks for letting me know. But RJ going into that game said they weren't worried about all the hype around Pooka, that they liked their plan. They were going to be physical, and they didn't think he was going to like to be hit as much as they hit him. And Coach Salt mentioned the job that RJ did, kind of, he said, hunting Pooka all night. Everywhere Pooka was, RJ wasn't far behind. He had an interception at one point. They got called back on a pass interference play that Zachary didn't really agree with, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. John Burrell, big night on defense. Another senior in that secondary, Tyler Judson, had an interception, and Chris Hart with the scoop and score at the end to really kind of put the exclamation point on it. And exclamation point on just a really big 3 days in the Dome overall.
Yes, definitely. It was exciting 3 days of football, and kind of started out on that Thursday with some closer games, and kind of like we mentioned before, those games haven't been so close in the past, and so it was good to see a few closer games, and then a few surprises in there. I think Catholic of New Iberia beating Notre Dame was a big surprise for a lot of people. You know, especially after that Notre Dame victory in Week 4. You know, what was some of your takeaways?
Yeah, I thought exactly like you were saying. Some of the smaller school games were closer than we've seen. I think that's a really positive thing as we continue in this select non-select mold. You saw some teams like U-High that look like they'll be a favorite again next year, as well as a Catholic and a Zachary that we talked about being ahead of schedule maybe, and now you wonder what's going to be ahead for them, and some of these other schools that bring back a lot, West St. John, Lafayette Christian. Great to see.
Helena.
Yeah, St. Helena will be back at some point. They've established themselves. Good to see guys get that first opportunity. Welsh, a program that had been around and been notable for so long, finally gets their first ring. West Feliciana.
I think they actually had a ring before. It seems like Coach Wall back in about '82. I'll let you fact check me there. But, you know, being from Jennings, you hear a lot about Welsh, and Coach Wall was a legend down there in Southwest Louisiana. So I believe they actually had one in the past.
And then West Feliciana, that group of guys that we talk so much about today, had been waited on for so long. Even when Jazz and Jay Ferguson were coming through, Ryan Reed and some of those other guys, people saw this group coming and thought they had a chance to be really special for them coming behind.
Right.
And they finally get it done in their last game together after playing together since they've been, 5-6 years old. A lot of those emotions are. It's really fun for me to see the positive side, and then it's so tough to turn to the other sideline and see teams like Richwood, that I know a lot of those guys come up short. So it's always kind of a bittersweet end to the season for me. Pooka has one of the, most historically notable postseason runs that we've ever seen, and comes up just a little bit short. So so it's just, storyline on top of storyline, and a lot of emotions, just a roller coaster.
As it is every year, and I'm sure it'll be another one next year. So
yeah, looking forward to it. Again, he's Brent Broussard, Jared Roser. Thanks.